With Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe on the horizon and all the new features it contains, it's fair to say that the series is going to hold the track record of delivering on quality remakes. Granted, there might not be many, only 3 in total to be precise, but all of them did a great job to modernize the respective original. With over 30 titles in the whole franchise, there are still a couple of interesting entries to reimagine, so why not take the opportunity and discuss which Kirby games could get a remake and why. These suggestions don't necessarily imply that they need a remake, but moreover simply speculations how some entries could be reimagined. In case you haven't noticed, I already rambled about this topic in another video, but this time I'm not alone.
Hello everyone, I'm Reese, and I'm a YouTuber who makes videos about a lot of different Nintendo franchises, Kirby included. But some say that I'm also obsessed with a certain series starring a papery Italian plumber. Anyways, I'm happy to join Channel Kirby in this video, and I will be giving some of my ideas for some Kirby remakes that I would like to see.
With that being said, let's take a look into the past and examine the potential of some remake-worthy Kirby entries.
Kirby 64 was the first game in the franchise to use 3D graphics, and its 2.5D style stands out from the other games. Compared to other games from that time, it still holds up fairly well today, as the level design is great, and it has a decent amount of content to offer overall. However, since this is a Nintendo 64 game, the visuals are definitely considered outdated nowadays. I can appreciate the style that the game was going for, and it looks good considering the context of the hardware that it was released on. But a remake could definitely improve the visuals in this game, and it could definitely help flesh out the unique worlds and locations that are in the game. Places like Shiver Star, Ripple Star, and the Pyramid on Rockstar would look very nice in HD. Another thing that they could do in a Kirby 64 remake is refine the movement and physics. While the slower movement is part of what made Kirby 64 slightly more difficult compared to the other Kirby games, I feel like faster movement and physics akin to the modern Kirby games would only improve the game. Even if the improved movement makes the game easier, I feel like there are other ways that the developers can compensate for the difficulty, like including a hard mode. Another feature that would be nice to see is Waddle Dee, DDD, and Adeline added as playable characters with co-op. This was actually originally planned to be a feature in the game, but it was scrapped for unknown reasons. DDD and Adeline could partially pull from their Star Allies moveset, with some modifications, and Waddle Dee could be upgraded to Bandana Dee. Similar to Return to Dreamland Deluxe, extra copy abilities could improve the game to some degree, and there are a lot of possibilities with the power combo mechanic in the game. Water would make for a great new element-based ability, while other notable copy abilities that were missing from the game, like Hammer, Twister, and Parasol, could be added. Extra modes would also be nice to see in a Kirby 64 remake, and I have a few ideas of what they could possibly do. The True Arena has been a staple of Kirby games since Superstar Ultra, and it would be fitting to have it in a Kirby 64 remake. There are a lot of possibilities of what they could do with the EX versions of each boss, as the bosses in the original version of Kirby 64 were pretty unique. Another mode that they could add is something akin to the Magolor Epilogue or Meta Nightmares that features a character other than Kirby. My idea for this is a side story featuring Adeline that shows her origins along with some secrets relating to dark matter. Overall, there are a lot of possibilities of what they could do with a Kirby 64 remake, since refinements and new modes would work very well.
Released on the Super Nintendo exclusively in Japan, it should take quite a while for us to experience the third entry in the Dreamland series. With the Virtual Console of the Wii, we finally got the chance to play this special looking title, building on the foundation of Dreamland 2. Just like many other Kirby games, this entry, however, aged quite well due to its unique crayon style, giving the impression a child drew the world of Planet Pop. Furthermore, it differentiates itself from Superstar, and despite the fact Dreamland 3 kinda dwells in the shadows of this far more popular classic, it doesn't need to hide its merits. As I said, the visuals go beyond everything we have seen on the Super Nintendo, and although it's not as technically outstanding as a Donkey Kong Country, it arguably aged noticeably better. On top of that, the gameplay is a solid evolution of what we have seen before, with new animal bodies mixing up the already existing ones. They are so present present that it's very rare to simply play as Kirby, which throws you constantly into unknown scenarios. Every copy ability works differently depending on which body you use, and just like with mixing of Kirby 64, it's always a delight to find out how they will turn out. Besides, you can play the game in multiplayer and meet the probably most iconic Kirby final boss. It may not be as elaborated or varied as Superstar, but does not try to imitate it at the same time, making Dreamland 3 a fantastic conclusion before venturing on the Nintendo 64. Now, why this game would benefit from a remake is quite obvious. Naturally, they would fully focus on the visuals and emphasize the graphics even more. Other titles showed how well this can turn out, and even though many Nintendo fans do not want to accept this truth, graphics can heavily enrich the overall package. In fact, Epic Yarn worked so well, it led other franchises using a similar style, proving the popularity behind graphically distinct art styles. Along the way, they would obviously modernize the gameplay, make the puzzles a little more consistent in some cases, and fine-tune the movement. Another huge benefit would be the return to animal bodies, as we have yet to wait for a comeback in a modern title. Overall, Dreamland 3 is still absolutely playable as it is, and there's no specific reason to remake it behind the amazing art style. Nonetheless, I think no one would complain, and we all want to see a certain final boss eventually return.
The 3DS Kirby games are great. They build off of the foundation that Return to Dreamland set a few years prior. Since Return to Dreamland recently got a remake, it would be great to see Triple Deluxe and Planet Robobot get a similar treatment. Even though it sounds unlikely, I feel like both of these games could be bundled together in a remake. Usually, this isn't something that Nintendo does with remakes, but HAL specifically handles remakes and game releases slightly differently. It would be more willing than Nintendo to release these games in the same package. It would be especially good to remake these games in the near future, as the 3DS eShop will be shutting down, and it will be a little more difficult to access these games. What I mostly want to see in a remake of both of these games is enhanced visuals akin to the Return to Dreamland Deluxe style. The new art style introduced in that remake would look great in Triple Deluxe and Planet Robobot, as they use a similar style to Return to Dreamland in their original games. Another feature, similar to what I mentioned in Kirby 64, is co-op and other playable characters in the main story. Bandana D would make the most sense as an extra character, but DDD and Meta Knight could possibly be unlockables by freeing them or beating their respective modes. Since Triple Deluxe and Planet Robobot would already have a lot of content combined, there probably wouldn't be much content added on top of those games. Sub-games like Kirby Fighters and Kirby Clash likely wouldn't be included due to their full souped-up versions of the games existing on Switch. So to make up for that, they could include souped-up versions of the original games that didn't get sequels on Switch, such as DDD's Drum Dash Deluxe and Kirby's Blowout Blast. This would be a great way of making these games more widely available on a modern console while making the overall package better. So overall, it would be great to see both Triple Deluxe and Planet Robobot bundled together with a few extra things added, although not much, since they already have a lot of content together.
This candidate is one of the more interesting ones. Released on the DS, Mass Attack makes heavy use of the specialities of the handheld by controlling multiple Kirbys with the touch pen. Translating this rather experimental game into the Switch would be quite troublesome, as they would have to find a way to circumvent the peculiar controls. Instead, what about reimagining the premise completely and turning Mass Attack to a Pikmin-style action game? Just like in Pikmin, you would control one main Kirby, while all the other ones are following. By flipping them into enemies, they will stick to them and start fighting just like in the original. It wouldn't necessarily be a strategy title and lean more into the action aspect, naturally being in 3D. Another possibility is something similar to the Wonderful 101. Just like in Pikmin or Mass Attack, you control an army of little characters, but by combining them into powerful transformations, you are able to perform mighty attacks and fight off giant beasts. Kirby and the Forgotten Land already resembles more of an action game than actual platformer, and a reimagining of Mass Attack would give them the opportunity to dive deep into this facet and at the same time experimenting with a spin-off. Of course, you cannot forget about the countless surprisingly well done minigames Mass Attack is known for. They would be simply remade, without any fancy additions whatsoever. This also goes for every aspect left of the game. The music, bosses, level design, which would need a new perspective, and overall charm aged fantastically well, and Mass Attack is probably one of the most underappreciated Kirby titles out there. Of course, this concept of a remake is highly unlikely and extreme wish thinking, but it also proves the potential behind nearly every second Kirby game to be something beyond its initial blueprint. Imagine a Kirby Mass Attack similar to the wonderful 101. Now I really want it after describing that. Beep beep beep, hello Kamiya, can you... I'm blocked. These are our ideas for potential remakes. Despite the fact Return to Dreamland Deluxe seems to enjoy a high popularity, I think it's safe to assume they will follow the previous pattern of releasing remakes rarely. It's comfy to visit classics from past we have connections with, but it's much more interesting to explore completely unknown territories.